After a year in which oil prices dominated the news, you might think the same issues will drive next year's energy stories. But if you just focus on oil prices, you'll miss the larger picture for 2016. We rely on oil, of course, for transportation and petrochemicals, but it's not the only game in town anymore. As our reliance on oil shrinks, we'll turn not to just one new source of energy, but several. This is different than what's happened in the past. Previously, one form of energy was superseded by another. In the 19th century, our reliance on wood gave way to coal, and in the 20th century, that yielded to oil. But in the 21st century, the next step won't be an orderly progression from one fuel to the next. It'll be a free-for-all. So, which source stands the best shot? Let's get the easy answer out of the way first. It isn't going to be coal. Although Japan and China will add coal plants this year, coal's share of U.S. electricity production has gone down 17% since 2005. Coal is just too dirty in the face of climate change. Nuclear energy isn't doing so hot these days either. Since Fukushima, several aging U.S. plants have been closed, and Germany, Japan, Taiwan, and other countries are planning to phase out nuclear energy altogether. From there, though, the energy picture gets a lot sunnier. Natural gas is the big success story of the past few years, pouring out of U.S. fracking projects and undercutting coal as a cheap source of electricity. Wind power is as cheap as coal in Germany and the UK, and demand for solar is actually the highest it's ever been, which may have something to do with the price of solar panels dropping 95% since 2008. In spite of all this upheaval, oil is still king. It's our single largest power source, and that's not going to change in 2016. Between high U.S. output, Iran probably resuming its exports, and Saudi Arabia lowballing to maintain market share, oil prices are likely to stay low for a while, which means less incentive to find an alternative. But there's a funny thing about oil you may not have noticed. It doesn't really compete with the others directly. Oil mostly powers cars, ships, and planes, while the others mostly generate electricity. The wild card for oil in 2016 and beyond is how fast cars might start to run on electricity instead of gasoline or diesel. If and when we see a big shift, it may signal the true end of the oil age, but it won't be replaced by the solar age or the biofuel age or the wind age. It'll be replaced by all of them.
All right, we all know that the sun's energy creates heat and light, but it can also be converted to make electricity, and lots of it. One technology is called solar photovoltaics, or PV for short. You've probably seen PV panels around for years, but recent advancements have greatly improved their efficiency and electrical output. Enough energy from the sun hits the Earth every hour to power the planet for an entire year. Here's how it works. You see, sunlight is made up of tiny packets of energy called photons. These photons radiate out from the sun, and about 93 million miles later, they collide with a semiconductor on a solar panel here on Earth. It all happens at the speed of light. Take a closer look, and you can see the panel is made up of several individual cells, each with a positive and a negative layer, which create an electric field. It works something like a battery. So, the photons strike the cell, and their energy frees some electrons in the semiconductor material. The electrons create an electric current, which is harnessed by wires connected to the positive and negative sides of the cell. The electricity created is multiplied by the number of cells in each panel, and the number of panels in each solar array. Combined, a solar array can make a lot of electricity for your home or business. This rooftop solar array powers this home, and the array on top of this warehouse creates enough electricity for about 1,000 homes. Okay, there are some obvious advantages to solar PV technology. It produces clean energy, it has no emissions, no moving parts, it doesn't make any noise, and it doesn't need water or fossil fuels to produce power. And it can be located right where the power is needed, in the middle of nowhere, or it can be tied into the power grid. Solar PV is growing fast, and it can play a big role in America's clean energy economy. Anywhere the sun shines.
mean, the fossil fuel industry is the biggest industry in the world. They have more money and more influence than any other sector. So, I mean, the more that there can be sort of popular uprising against that, the better. But I think the scientific fact of the matter is we are unavoidably headed towards some level of harm. So the sooner we can take action, the less harm will result.
You give people the data, you empower the people. And this popular support have motivated China's policy of green growth. The government changed its plan for renewable energy.
Is there a giant push towards solar and wind here? Is that the next step?
China's got some of the biggest wind and solar companies in the world now. Even though China has some of the largest challenges, like huge population, China's going to prioritize wind and solar rather than coal. But if China can do it, then I think the rest of the world can.
China is still heavily relying on fossil fuels, but they seem to be transitioning to renewables much faster than anyone anticipated.